Congratulations, it's twins.
This can't be. He raped me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's okay, breathe.
The ultrasound wand pressed cold against Tamara's stomach while the technician's face went carefully blank. That expression, the one healthcare workers wore when they saw something that changed everything, made Tamara's blood run cold. 2 heartbeats echoed through the sterile room like thunder. Twins. The word didn't register at first. Couldn't register. Because 3 months ago, Tamara had died on a marble floor in a penthouse overlooking Seoul. Her body had kept walking, kept breathing, kept existing. But the woman she'd been had ended the moment Kim Young-yu's hand closed around her wrist and refused to let go. Now, 2 lives grew inside her from that night. 2 innocent hearts beating in sync, tied forever to the man who destroyed her. The technician handed her the printed images with practiced sympathy. Tamara stared at the grainy shadows, those 2 tiny shapes that would bind her to her nightmare forever, or set her free. Before we continue, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to K-Mafia Romance Stories for stories that'll wreck you in the best way. 3 months earlier, Tamara had walked into the Kim family estate believing she was prepared for anything. She'd worked private care for Seoul's elite for 5 years. She knew how to be invisible, efficient, essential without being seen. The wealthy wanted ghosts who could manage medical equipment and family secrets with equal discretion. Mrs. Kim had been her assignment. Stage 4 lung cancer, weeks to live, a dignified woman facing an undignified end. The estate sprawled across 2 acres of prime Seoul real estate. Old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. Inside, everything whispered wealth, marble floors that caught reflections like water, art that belonged in museums, silence thick enough to drown in. Mrs. Kim had smiled when they first met, a real smile, not the polite mask most clients wore. "You have kind eyes," she'd said in accented English. "My son could use someone with kind eyes around here." Tamara had nodded professionally, not knowing that simple observation would later feel like prophecy. The next 8 weeks blurred together. Medication schedules, pain management, stolen conversations during lucid moments. Mrs. Kim spoke about her life, her regrets, the empire her family had built on foundations she'd never been brave enough to question. "My son carries too much darkness," she'd whispered one afternoon, her hand fragile in Tamara's grip. "I tried to teach him gentleness, but his father taught him power. Now I'm leaving him alone with all that rage." Tamara had promised to stay through the end, had promised to make Mrs. Kim's final days as peaceful as possible. She'd kept that promise. What came after would haunt her forever. The night Mrs. Kim died, the house filled with people who'd never visited during her illness. Black suits, expensive perfume, catered food nobody touched. They came to be seen, to position themselves, to calculate their moves in whatever power shift would follow. Kim Young-yu had stood apart from everyone, receiving condolences with a face carved from ice. Tamara had seen him before during her weeks there. Brief glimpses of a man who moved through the estate like a storm barely contained. He never stayed long, never spoke to his dying mother beyond clinical visits that left Mrs. Kim crying softly after he left. He terrified the staff. The way sharks terrify, all lethal grace and the promise of violence just beneath the surface. By midnight, the mourners had scattered. Tamara finished packing medical equipment, erasing evidence of death the way she'd been trained. Her supervisor had texted, "Stay until dismissed. The family hasn't released you yet. Triple overtime." So she'd waited in the small staff room, reviewing paperwork, trying not to think about Mrs. Kim's last words. "Take care of my son. He's more lost than he knows." At 2 a.m., Tamara heard something crash. Professional instinct warred with survival instinct. She wasn't family, wasn't security, just hired help whose purpose had expired. But the sound had been violent, desperate, wrong. She found Kim Young-yu in his mother's sitting room. The space had been preserved exactly as Mrs. Kim left it. books she'd never finish reading, teacups she'd never use again, photographs of a life that had just ended. Young-yu stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, surrounded by shattered frames and torn photographs. His hands were bleeding, glass embedded in his palms, but he didn't seem to notice. "Mr. Kim." Tamara's voice came out steady despite her hammering heart. "You're hurt. Please let me help." He turned, and Tamara saw something in his eyes that made her step back. Not grief. Something darker, more dangerous. Rage and pain twisted into something that looked like madness. She shouldn't have approached, shouldn't have tried to help, should have walked away and let him destroy himself in that room full of ghosts. But Mrs. Kim's voice echoed in her memory. "Take care of my son." So, Tamara moved closer. Medical training overriding instinct. "Let me see your hands. Don't touch me." His voice cut like the glass under his feet. "Don't you dare touch me with those hands." "What?" Confusion replaced caution. "Mr. Kim, I'm just trying to help." "You touched her." Young-yu's words came out ragged, barely controlled. "You were holding her hand when she died. You were the last thing she saw, not me. Because I wasn't here. Because I couldn't, I wouldn't. I'm sorry for your loss." "Sorry," he laughed, the sound breaking in the middle. "My mother spent her whole life apologizing for me. Now she's dead. And strangers like you were there when I should have been." Tamara understood trauma, had seen it twist people into shapes they didn't recognize. But something in Young-yu's eyes made her skin crawl, made her realize her mistake in staying, in approaching, in thinking she could help. "I should go." She took a step back. "I'll call someone to help you. You were there." He moved forward, closing the distance. "You saw her die. Tell me what she said. Tell me if she asked for me." "She wasn't in pain." Tamara kept her voice calm, clinical. "She went peacefully." "Liar." Young-yu grabbed her wrist, his grip bruising. "She was terrified. My mother was terrified of dying, and you stood there and watched it happen like it was just another job. Please let go." Fear crept into Tamara's voice now. "You're upset. Let me call your family." "My family." His grip tightened. "My family built an empire on blood. My father taught me that power means never apologizing, never showing weakness. And my mother spent her whole life trying to teach me the opposite. You know what that does to someone? Being caught between two opposite truths? Mr. Kim, you're hurting me. Good." His other hand came up to her face, fingers digging into her jaw. "Good. Because I've been hurt my whole life, and I'm tired of being the only one bleeding." What happened next lived in Tamara's memory as fragments. Disconnected moments she couldn't piece together into a coherent narrative. His weight, the cold floor, the sound of her own voice saying, "No, please, stop." Words that disappeared into nothing. The taste of blood. Fabric tearing. Pain that made everything white and empty. And afterward, his voice, cold and steady, like nothing had happened. "Don't pretend you didn't enjoy it." Then silence. The sound of a door closing. The feeling of being utterly, completely alone. Tamara lay on that marble floor for an hour before her body remembered how to move. She pulled herself up, every muscle screaming, and found her scattered clothes. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't button her shirt. The bathroom mirror showed someone she didn't recognize. Bruises blooming across her throat, her wrists, her thighs. Evidence written on skin that nobody would believe. She should call the police, should go to the hospital, should do all the things they tell you to do when the worst thing happens. Instead, Tamara walked out of the estate at dawn, got into her car, and drove until Seoul disappeared behind her. The next 3 weeks were a blur of cheap motels and sleepless nights. She couldn't go home, couldn't face her apartment with its cheerful curtains and the life she'd built so carefully. That life belonged to someone else now. Someone who hadn't been destroyed by Kim Young-yu's rage and grief. She reported it once, called the police from a payphone in Busan, gave her statement to a detective who listened with practiced sympathy. "Miss Ibrahim, Without physical evidence or witnesses, these cases are difficult, and the Kim family is very powerful. You understand what you're accusing? Translation: give up now. 2 days later, a lawyer found her, offered her money in exchange for silence, 5 million won, and an NDA that would ensure she never spoke about that night. Tamara had spit in his face, so she ran. Changed her name on every document she could, moved to a tiny apartment above a restaurant in Busan, found work at a free clinic that served immigrants and didn't ask uncomfortable questions. She built a new life from fragments, told herself she was healing, believed it sometimes during the day when work kept her busy. The nightmares came anyway. Every night, Younggu's voice. Don't pretend you didn't enjoy it. A month after that night, Tamara missed her period. The pregnancy test showed 2 lines that looked like a prison sentence. She'd stared at those lines for an hour, then bought 3 more tests. Same result. Same impossible, unbearable truth. She was carrying Kim Young-woo's child. The thought made her vomit into the tiny bathroom sink. Not morning sickness, pure, visceral rejection of reality. 2 weeks later, the ultrasound revealed twins. Now, standing in the clinic with those grainy images in her hand, Tamara faced a choice she'd been avoiding. The Gwangju clinic could see her next. Weak. Legal, safe, final. She could erase this last connection to Young-gu and finally, truly be free. But she'd been staring at appointment cards for 3 weeks and hadn't called. Mrs. Kim's voice haunted her. Live boldly. Don't let fear make you small. These babies hadn't asked to be conceived in violence, hadn't chosen their father. And maybe they were Tamara's chance to reclaim something Young-woo had stolen. Her agency, her choice, her life. She was still staring at the ultrasound images when someone knocked. Tamara froze. She never got visitors. The landlord had her number. Nobody at the clinic knew where she lived. She'd been so careful to stay invisible. The knock came again, louder, more insistent. Miss Ibrahim. The voice was male, professional, terrifying in its calm certainty. Mr. Kim would like a word. Tamara's blood turned to ice. Her hand moved to her stomach instinctively, protectively. She looked at the window. 4th floor, no fire escape. The door handle turned. She'd forgotten to lock it. Stupid, careless, fatal. 3 men in black suits entered her tiny apartment like they owned it. Professional, efficient. The kind of men who made problems disappear. The tallest smiled with practiced politeness. Mr. Kim has a car waiting. He's requesting your presence for a conversation. I have nothing to say to him. Tamara's voice shook despite her best efforts. He anticipated you'd feel that way. The man pulled out a tablet, turned it to face her. Security footage from the clinic, her medical files, the ultrasound images. He's aware of your condition. The man's smile never wavered. He's also aware that time-sensitive decisions require time-sensitive conversations. The threat was crystalline. Come willingly or be taken by force. Tamara thought about screaming. But who would hear? Who would care? The restaurant below was closed. Her neighbors kept to themselves. And Kim Young-gu had probably already paid off anyone who might ask questions. Do I have a choice? Everyone has choices, Miss Ibrahim. The man gestured to the door. Some are just more pleasant than others. 20 minutes later, Tamara sat in a black Mercedes, watching Busan disappear in the rearview mirror. They were heading north, back to Seoul, back to the city she'd sworn never to return to, back to him. The car stopped at a private airfield. Not commercial, not charter. The kind of place where planes took off without flight plans and passengers boarded without showing identification. Kim Young-woo stood beside a jet, and Tamara's body remembered everything her mind had tried to forget. The weight of him, and the sound of her own voice begging. The cold floor under her back. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at the man who destroyed her. He looked exactly the same. Tall, immaculate, devastating. designer suit, perfect hair, a face that could sell anything to anyone. Nobody would believe this man was capable of violence. Tamara knew better. Miss Ibrahim. He nodded as she approached, flanked by his men. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't agree to anything. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Semantics. Youngyu gestured toward the jet. We have much to discuss. I'd prefer to do so somewhere private. Where are we going? Jeju Island. I have a property there. Quiet, secure, no interruptions. Tamara's stomach turned. I'm not getting on that plane. You're carrying my children. Youngyu's voice remained calm, reasonable. That makes this conversation inevitable. We can have it now civilly, or we can have it later under less pleasant circumstances. Your choice, my choice. Anger cut through fear. You don't get to talk to me about choices. You don't get to... I know what I did. Youngyu's voice dropped, barely audible over the jet engines. I know what I took from you, and I know there's nothing I can say that will make it right. Then why am I here? Because those children didn't choose their father. Youngyu met her eyes, and Tamara saw something she didn't expect. Guilt. Real, raw, human guilt. They deserve a future that isn't built on your fear and my guilt. The words should have sounded like manipulation. Instead, they sounded like a man desperately trying to mean what he said. What do you want from me? 30 minutes of your time. Youngyu stepped closer, and Tamara forced herself not to flinch. If after we talk, you still want to leave, I'll arrange transport back to Busan. You'll never hear from me again. He paused. But if you run now without hearing what I have to say, you'll always wonder what you missed. Tamara looked at the jet, at the men surrounding her, at the sunset painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. She thought about the two lives growing inside her, about the appointment she'd made but hadn't confirmed, about the choice that wasn't really a choice at all. 30 minutes. She forced the words out. Then I'm gone. Young-U nodded once. That's all I ask. The jet's interior was obscene. Luxury. Leather seats, polished wood, a bar stocked with bottles that cost more than Tamara's yearly salary. She sat as far from Young-U as the cabin allowed, arms wrapped protectively around her stomach. He poured himself whiskey. The smell made her nauseous, brought back memories of that night. His breath, his weight, everything. I won't insult you with apologies. Young-U settled into the seat across from her, keeping distance between them. What I did was unforgivable. I was drowning in grief and alcohol, and I destroyed you because I could. Because you were there, and I was broken, and I made you pay for my pain. Tamara said nothing. What was there to say? I don't remember most of that night clearly. Young-U's hand tightened around his glass. But I remember enough. I remember you saying no. I remember not stopping. I remember the look on your face afterward, like I'd killed something inside you. His voice remained steady, but something in his eyes betrayed him. Shame. Real. Human. Shame. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to not repeat my father's mistakes. What does that mean? My father built an empire on violence and fear. Young-Yu's expression hardened. He destroyed anyone who stood in his way, including family. My mother spent her life trying to teach me differently, trying to make me human. She failed. Tamara's throat tightened, remembering Mrs. Kim, the gentle woman who'd called her daughter in Korean, who'd made her promise to live boldly. She made me promise before she died that I wouldn't become him. Young-Yu's voice dropped. That I'd build something better, leave something worth inheriting. And then 3 hours after she died, I proved I was exactly like him. And you think forcing me onto a plane is building something better? I think giving those children a choice is better than forcing them to grow up wondering why their father never acknowledged them. The plane began taxiing. Tamara's hands gripped the armrest, knuckles white. I'm not keeping them. The lie tasted bitter. I have an appointment next week. You haven't scheduled it yet. Young-Yu's eyes met hers. If you were certain, you would have done it weeks ago. You're still deciding. which means there's still a conversation to be had. 30 minutes turned into an hour. By the time they landed on Jeju Island, Tamara had heard Youngwoo's proposal in its entirety. And it was somehow worse than anything she'd imagined. The villa overlooked black sand beaches and cliffs that dropped into churning ocean. Inside, staff had prepared a suite that looked like a luxury hotel. Youngwoo had given her space to think, to process, to decide. His offer was simple and monstrous. Marry him, live in his home for the duration of the pregnancy. After the children were born, she'd receive 50 million won and full custody, with the understanding that he'd maintain visitation rights and financial support. 9 months of her life for generational wealth and security. 9 months living with her rapist. Tamara stood on the balcony, watching waves crash against volcanic rock. Thought about choices, about the appointment she'd made but hadn't confirmed, about the ultrasound images of 2 tiny lives that hadn't asked to be created this way, about Mrs. Kim's voice, live boldly, was keeping these children bold, or just another form of self-destruction. The next morning, Youngwoo found her in the villa's garden, staring at flowers that somehow grew despite the harsh coastal wind. Have you decided? Tamara didn't turn around. Why do you want them? You could have children with anyone, someone who'd actually want to be with you. Because they're already here. Youngwoo's voice was quiet. Because my mother's last wish was for me to build something that mattered. Because I owe you this much. A choice, resources, security. The things I took from you that night. You can't buy back what you stole, I know. But I can give your children everything I never had. A father who's present, who tries, who doesn't make them pay for his sins. Tamara finally turned to face him. You want to be a good father? After what you did? I want to be better than my father. Youngwoo's expression was unreadable. The bar is low. If I agree, and I'm not saying I am, I need conditions. Name them. Separate rooms. No touching. No pretending this is anything but a business arrangement. Agreed. I want my own medical team. Not doctors you've paid off. Done. And after the children are born, I'm gone. Tamara stepped closer, needing him to understand. No strings, no conditions, no sudden changes to the contract. Youngwoo nodded slowly. You'll have everything in writing. My lawyers will draft it today. Tamara wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the morning chill. I need to think about it. Take your time. Youngwoo's voice dropped. But know this. If you choose termination, I won't stop you. It's your body, your choice, your right. But if you choose to keep them, I won't abandon them. Or you. Whatever you decide, you won't face it alone. The sincerity in his voice should have rung false. Instead, it sounded like a man desperately trying to mean what he said. 3 days later, Tamara signed the contract. Not because she believed Youngwoo's promises. Not because 50 million won could erase what he'd done. But because Mrs. Kim's voice wouldn't stop echoing in her mind. And because these babies deserved a chance at life, even if their beginning was steeped in darkness. The first month back in Seoul was surreal. Youngwoo kept his distance, treated her with careful courtesy, ensured she had everything she needed. The penthouse had been transformed. The room where it happened was now locked, unused. Her suite was in the opposite wing, bright and modern with medical equipment and specialists who monitored her and the twins daily. She saw him mostly at dinner. Awkward, formal affairs where they made stilted conversation about nothing important. He asked about her comfort, her health, her needs. He never asked about that night. The pregnancy progressed, the twins grew, and slowly, despite everything, Tamara began to feel something other than fear. One evening, she found Youngwoo in his study, surrounded by legal documents and financial reports. He looked exhausted. Working late? She stood in the doorway, unsure why she'd sought him out. He glanced up, surprised, restructuring some holdings. My uncle isn't happy about my sudden interest in legitimate business. You have an uncle? Kim Tae-young, my mother's brother. Young-woo's expression darkened. He's been managing the family's less legal operations. He's not pleased that I'm trying to go straight. Is he dangerous? Everyone in my family is dangerous. Young-woo leaned back in his chair, but Tae-young especially. He thinks I'm weak. That fatherhood has made me soft. Has it? Young-woo met her eyes. Yes. And I'm terrified it's going to get us all killed. The honesty in his voice made Tamara step into the study. Why are you really doing this? The legitimate business, the marriage contract, all of it? My mother spent her last days trying to make me promise I'd be better than my father. Young-woo's voice was quiet. Better than the empire he built on blood and fear. I laughed at her, told her it was too late for redemption. What changed? What I did to you was the kind of thing my father would have done. Young-woo's hands clenched. The kind of thing he did do, repeatedly, to women who couldn't fight back. I looked in the mirror the next morning and saw him staring back. It terrified me more than anything in my life. You think having these babies makes you better? I think trying to give them a different legacy than the one I inherited is the only chance I have at not becoming him completely. Tamara found herself sitting in the chair across from his desk. The mountain of legal documents between them suddenly feeling less like a barrier. Your mother was kind to me. In those last weeks, she treated me like I mattered. She had good instincts about people. Young-woo's expression softened. She would have liked knowing you were the one caring for her at the end. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. You gave her dignity. Young-woo's voice caught. That was enough. They sat in silence, the city glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows like scattered diamonds. Later that night, Tamara lay in her luxurious prison, hands on her growing stomach, and wondered when Kim Young-woo had stopped being just her rapist and started becoming something more complicated, something almost human. The realization terrified her. By the second month, the careful distance between them began to crack. Small moments accumulated. Young-woo steadying her when she stumbled on the stairs, his hand gentle on her elbow. Tamara finding him asleep in his study at 3 a.m., draping a blanket over his shoulders before she could stop herself. Dinners, where conversations occasionally felt almost real. The twins were active now, kicking hard enough that Tamara winced. During one dinner, she gasped, hand flying to her stomach. Young-woo was beside her instantly. What's wrong? Should I call the doctor? They're just kicking. She laughed despite herself. I think one's trying to break out early. May I? Young-woo stopped, clearly warring with himself. Can I feel? Every instinct screamed no, but his expression held something fragile, almost pleading. Slowly, she took his hand and placed it against her stomach. The twin kicked immediately, hard enough that Young-woo's eyes widened. They're real. His voice held wonder. I mean, I knew they were real, but ultrasounds are just pictures. This makes them real. Tamara understood. His hand lingered a moment too long before he pulled away, clearing his throat. Thank you for letting me feel that. The moment shifted something between them, made the arrangement feel less like a business contract and more like something neither of them had names for. One afternoon, Tamara found a package outside her door. Inside was a leather journal with her initials embossed on the cover and a note in Young-woo's precise handwriting. My mother kept journals her entire life. She said writing helped her remember who she was when the world tried to make her forget. I thought you might find it useful. Why? Tamara traced the initials with trembling fingers, something warm and terrifying unfurling in her chest. That night, she wrote her first entry. I don't know what's happening. I don't know when he stopped being the monster and started being just a man trying not to be his father. And I don't know what that means for me. The next morning brought chaos. Tamara was reviewing prenatal vitamins with her doctor when screaming erupted from downstairs. Security shouting, glass breaking, gunshots. Young-woo burst into her room, face grim. We need to move you. Now. What's happening? My uncle's making a play for the family business. Young-yu pulled a weapon from his jacket. He's brought men. My security is holding them off, but we need to get you somewhere safe. I'm not leaving you. You're carrying my children. Young-yu gripped her shoulders, his expression fierce. That makes you a target. I need you safe. Please, Tamara. More gunshots. Closer now. A man in a dark suit appeared in the doorway. One of Young-yu's security. Boss, they've breached the second floor. We need to move. Young-yu made a split-second decision. He pulled Tamara close, wrapped an arm around her, and led her toward a hidden panel in the wall she'd never noticed. Safe room. He pushed it open, revealing a small space with reinforced walls. Bulletproof. Secure line to emergency services. You stay here until I come back. And if you don't come back? Young-yu cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Then you take the twins and run. The account information is in the desk. 50 million won like I promised. You take it and disappear. Young-yu. He kissed her forehead, quick and desperate. Stay alive for them. Then he was gone. The panel sliding shut, leaving her in darkness with only the sound of her racing heart and distant gunfire. Tamara's hands went to her stomach, protecting the twins from danger they didn't understand. She found the desk he'd mentioned, pulled out documents detailing bank accounts and contingency plans. Beneath the financial papers, she found something else, a letter addressed to her in Young-yu's handwriting. Tamara, if you're reading this, I'm likely dead. I know that should feel like justice to you. I destroyed your life, and now mine is over. Perhaps that's karma. But I need you to know these past months, watching you carry my children, watching you be stronger than I ever gave you credit for, it's been the closest thing to redemption I've ever felt. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve your trust. But I want you to know that I see you. The woman my mother saw, who treated her with kindness when she was dying. The woman brave enough to face her rapist every day for the sake of children who aren't even born yet. You're extraordinary, and those twins are lucky they'll have you, even if they never have me. The money is yours. No conditions. Take it. Disappear. Build a life where my family's darkness can't touch you. I'm sorry doesn't cover what I took from you. But I'm sorry anyway. Why? Tamara read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face, before the sound of the panel opening made her jump. Young-yu stood there, blood on his shirt, exhaustion in his eyes, but alive. It's over. His voice was rough. Tae-young's men are down. He's in custody. You're hurt. Superficial. Young-yu noticed the letter in her hands, his expression shifting to something vulnerable. You weren't supposed to find that, unless you died, and I'd never know you felt this way. Anger and relief warred in her chest. You can't. You don't get to. She was in his arms before she realized she'd moved, hands gripping his jacket, face pressed against his chest despite the blood. You don't get to write me letters saying goodbye and then walk back in here like it's nothing. His arms came around her carefully, like he was afraid she'd break. I'm sorry. I didn't think... No, you didn't. She pulled back enough to look at him. I'm furious with you. I know. I should hate you. I know. But I don't. The confession tore out of her. And that's the worst part. I don't hate you anymore, Young-yu. And I don't know what to do with that. His hand came up to her face, wiping away tears. You don't have to do anything. We don't have to figure this out right now. Then, after they're born, after you've had time to heal and think without being trapped in this contract. Young-yu's thumb traced her cheekbone. I meant what I wrote. If you want to take the money and leave, I won't stop you. But if you want to stay, I shouldn't want to stay. Tamara's voice broke. What you did will always be between us. I know. His forehead pressed against hers. But maybe we can figure out how to live. With it together. Tamara closed her eyes, feeling the twins kick between them, feeling Young-yu's heartbeat against her palms, feeling the impossible, terrible, wonderful reality of this moment. I need time. You'll have it. All the time you need. And space. As much as you want. And therapy. His laugh was soft, almost broken. Lots of therapy. Whatever you need, Tamara, I promise. The twins were born 6 weeks later in a private hospital with security outside the door. Labor was long, brutal, beautiful. Young-yu held her hand through all of it, let her scream at him, squeeze hard enough to leave bruises, blame him for every contraction. When the first baby, a girl, emerged crying, the nurse placed her on Tamara's chest. Tiny, perfect, innocent of her parents' complicated history. She's beautiful, Young-yu breathed, touching the baby's tiny hand with reverent fingers. She looks like your mother, Tamara whispered, seeing Mrs. Kim's elegant features in miniature. The second baby, a boy, came 20 minutes later. Quieter, but no less alive. When the nurse placed him beside his sister, both babies calmed, tiny hands finding each other. They're ours, Tamara said, wonder cutting through exhaustion. They're really ours. Young-yu looked at her with something that might have been love, might have been gratitude, might have been the beginning of redemption. Thank you, his voice cracked, for giving them life, for not giving up. Don't thank me yet, Tamara managed a tired smile. The hard part's just beginning. I know. Young-yu kissed her forehead gently. But we'll figure it out together. If you'll let me. Tamara looked at their children, at the man who destroyed her and was now trying desperately to build something better, at the impossible future stretching ahead. Ask me again in 6 months, she said finally. After I've had time to think, I can wait 6 months. Young-yu's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Can you? For them? Tamara looked at the twins. For us? Maybe. That's enough. Tamara didn't believe in redemption stories. Didn't believe monsters could become men or that violence could be undone with gentle touches and whispered promises. But looking at their twins, at Young-yu's tear-filled eyes, at the future they'd somehow built from the ashes of the worst night of her life, she thought maybe some stories didn't need redemption. Maybe they just needed people brave enough to keep living despite everything broken between them. 6 months, she repeated, a promise and a challenge. 6 months. Young-yu agreed, pressing a kiss to their daughter's forehead, then their son's. And for now, that's enough. Tamara held her babies close, felt Young-yu's presence beside her, and thought about choices, about living boldly, about the woman Mrs. Kim had believed she could become. The road ahead was impossible, complicated, terrifying. But she'd survived the worst night of her life. She'd carried these twins through fear and trauma and impossible circumstances. She'd faced her rapists every day and somehow found her way to this moment. If she could survive that, maybe she could survive anything, even hope. Drop a comment telling me what you thought of Tamara and Young-yu's story. And don't forget to subscribe to K-Mafia Romance Stories for more tales that'll keep you hooked. See you in the next one.